We've got news of the one world currency coming and the dollar collapse, the inevitable dollar collapse, the debt at the rate that it's at. Completely impossible for the United States to pay this debt back. We've got Russia, China, different nations around the world pushing towards using a different currency for the United States, or for the world reserve currency, which is the United States dollar used on the global market and the trading market. But we're seeing moves of the dollar collapsing, as well as at the World Government Summit 2022. One of the speakers on the panel talks about how we're moving towards a digital currency, a currency that will be one world, a currency that would be controlled completely digitally, which is practically at that point already now. I'd imagine that the amount of people who use cash in the United States as their main form of currency is probably less than 5%. And this lady, Pippa Malmgreen, who made that statement, an economist at the World Government Summit, wasn't talking about cryptocurrency, but was talking about a central bank digital currency, which would be completely controlled. And as we know through China and their social credit score system, that they would just, you say something online they don't like, you buy products they don't like, you did this or that, they would just cut you off because that's just what they do. I mean, we already see them doing that now with people who they don't agree with, and they're closing their bank accounts and things along those lines. We're seeing more of a push towards this, and we have been for years. In this article from 2019, it talks about how China, India, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, how they are all making moves to strategically move away from the US dollar. We're seeing that now. We're seeing that with the sanctions in Russia moving to rubles, demanding that oil be bought with rubles instead of any other currency. China, since 2017, has been selling off their US Treasury reserves and exchanging it for gold, as well as trying to build up the yen, their currency. And that's what we're seeing in Russia as well, trying to build up the rubles, their currency. That's kind of what all these nations are doing who are moving away from the dollar. They're moving over to the currency of their nation, or moving over to a different nation's currency, such as India, who has the sixth largest economy in the world, moving over to the rubles, the Russian ruble. So we're seeing this around the world, along with the inevitable fact that our dollar is just so in debt that we'll never pay it back. We'll just never pay it back. The United States would either have to go to war or enact some completely insane thing, like I've heard they could mint a coin worth, some loophole where they could mint a coin worth our debt and then use that coin to pay off our debt. Of course, nations who we owe money to, like China, would not be very happy about that, I would imagine. And then we're seeing what's also interesting is how many of these nations moving towards the ruble, and many people for years before this whole Ukraine thing has been going on, has been saying that they believe that Magog in the Bible is Russia. So we're seeing these moves being set up all over, really setting things up for the inevitable fact of Revelation 13:16-17, which we know talks about the mark of the beast. You cannot buy or sell unless you have this mark in your hand or in your forehead. So this is an inevitable truth that will come here based off prophecy. I mean, just imagine when this was written, they didn't even know what the world looked like or what people lived on the world. Many people alive at that time were still just barely had knowledge of tools, let alone how the entire population of the earth would somehow have a mark in their hand or their head before they could even use a currency. That's like a completely unbelievable thought to even think up, unless it's a prophecy given by God, because back then, there's no way that would be even fathomable, that people on these different continents would have to use, and people in unknown lands. Of course, they knew there was unknown lands. People would take boats and find new places all the time back then. So, the fact that this prophecy was given, and it's just such an unfathomable thing, and we're finally living in a time where we're moving towards government systems, state systems, to be able to cut off people's digital accounts and their bank accounts if they don't like what you say, or if you say don't get a mark in your hand or in your head. And now we're seeing these things come to play. So with these technologies, with the digital currencies, Everything's completely being set up before our very eyes, and it cannot be that far off. I would imagine between 5 and 30 years, but of course no one knows the day or the hour. Those guesses are always just guesses, really, but it seems like sometimes these things take longer than we imagine, even though we're clearly seeing them being set up, and we're seeing all these things take place. I mean, look just at the fact of how many people in the world just completely gave up their rights, gave up their businesses, gave up going out, weren't even meeting with families and family members for Christmas and things like that, holidays, whatever, and not having dinner with them because they were told not to by the state. So it's pretty incredible to see. Things are clearly being set up, test runs all the time. Satan's working all the time to try to get these things in place, and that's exactly what we're seeing. China doesn't want the dollar. Russia doesn't want the dollar. The superpowers of the world don't want the dollar. We put sanctions on these different nations in the Middle East and all over, Russia and whatnot, and that China, everybody, and then they have to go around our dollar because they don't want to use it anymore to get commodities or whatever, or they can't use it because of these sanctions we put in place. It's forcing people to not even use the dollar or want the dollar. And so these massive superpowers of the world, they're working and they're setting up how to work around this. So when the dollar collapses and when nations move around it, or we move into whatever what will be, I mean, it could be that the dollar collapses, different things take place, and then they just come in with this whole new, or worse things even take place, World War III, what have you, and then, the Antichrist comes on the scene and says, no more war, he'll be a liar trying to spread peace, and no more war, worldwide currency, everyone gets on board with this digital currency, then eventually, you'll need a mark to buy or sell or do anything. And you say or do anything we don't like, you don't have access to your bank anymore. We're seeing these things being set up right now before our very eyes. Every prophecy in the Bible has come to fruition up until now, completely proving the validity of the Bible. It's complete proof that God is real and that the Bible and the Word of God that we have is the complete truth. So as we see nations and organizations and people, world government systems, these world government, summits and United Nations and all these people talking about moving away from the dollar, one world currency, one world government, all these things, we're just moving into the end times and the fulfillment of the final prophecies and the revelation of Jesus Christ, which when that day comes will be a great thing because there'll be no more evil, no more hurt, no more anything. He'll wipe away everybody's tears who follows him. So accept Jesus and follow him, because that's the most important decision anyone could ever make, and truly at the end of the day, that's what truly matters. And I pray that everybody who is listening to this will give their life to Jesus if they haven't already. It's the only choice in this life that you truly need to make that will matter for eternity. Thanks for watching. God bless.